So, good evening. Tonight, I'm going to take my glasses off, then we don't have the reflection. I have a few things I wanted to talk about. And for one is, we have the railroad days coming up. And the Lawrence Model Railroad Club has the annual train show. I will talk about these two things here in a minute. Then I bought the Calumet train super traction tires at the recommendation over at the from the folks over at Midwest Model Railroad, and that worked out pretty well. So I wanted to share that with you, my thoughts on this. And I found my list with the RAL colors for the E44. And then I wanted to talk about my experience now with DCC and the issues. I can't really say issues, but the complications and all of the stuff with DCC if you go the route with DCC++, DCC EX, and JMI. I do not know if JMI runs over other systems too. I would guess so, as a master controller, so to speak. Like I said before in my videos, the JMI software, as it is, runs on Java. And yesterday, or the day before yesterday, it was yesterday, when I updated my JMI from 4.12 to 4.22 because of the Arduino stuff I use. I'm kind of locked in there for the moment. I was not able to update the Java version I have on my Windows 10 computer from Java 8 to Java 11 or higher. The JMI people have some links there to 2-3 different websites I'm not familiar with in order to install the Java 11 and higher versions, and somehow the other way I couldn't figure this out yesterday. With that being said, we're living in very crazy times, I would say, at least. And Friday, that lunar space thing out there landed on the moon, supposedly. And then we were waiting. I was watching this live on YouTube from the command center, the live stream they had. And of course, there was no pictures or video coming in. The transmission from the moon to Earth takes 2.14 seconds. So if you land something on the moon within say 10 seconds, 15 seconds, with the data transmission rates we have today in our advanced electronics, you should have gotten live video stream or pictures of the landing site, the way this thing landed and everything else. The people have a website up or the YouTube channel up where they have multiple live streams. And even 36 hours, 48 hours into this, they had not received any live updates or pictures of the lunar lander on the moon. So we have really no clue of what happened. I haven't followed it today. If something happened between last night when I checked last and now, which was about 24 hours later, if there's something happened, I missed it. But I didn't get any notifications from any of the news channels I'm subscribed to of any pictures or whatever. And this in general, what we're seeing now is with electronics and software is that it has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it has gotten to a point where it is nearly unmanageable. Java, Windows, any one of these operating environments, even the Apple people with iOS or IO, or whatever they call it, and the Linux people, they're getting there too. the thing has grown and has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and becomes more and more difficult. And yesterday was a staunch reminder of this, that this is no different with the DCC systems. I started out with the Lockpilot 4 in 2020, in January of 2020, pretty much 4 years ago. I was able to buy 3 more, I think, yeah, which brings me to a total of 4 Lockpilot 4s I have now installed. And yesterday, in the last couple of days, I did the installation of the Lockpilot 5. And of course, that immediately swapped into updating GMI to a higher number because it wasn't available in that version I was running. And we're going to see this more and more. So one day we're going to wake up and we're going to have a Lockpilot 6 or whatever decoder you're using. This is going to be a continuous updating and changing hardware and this, that, and the other thing. Now, the DCC++ people, they had to change over from the Arduino Uno they started out with over to the Arduino Mega, I believe. I have not gotten fully into this yet. And the reason for this was the adoption of the Wi-Fi shield. So you can use the GMI app, which I subscribe to for my iPhone. And then you can run the throttle or throttles, multiple, over your phone. So you don't have to go through the PC, once you're on the layout and you start running stuff. And I found that to be quite interesting, but I would have to purchase now another Arduino and possibly a more suitable motor shield, what they call it, to plug this in to get more output power, as I had explained before. Now, when I was out at Midwest Model Railroad, I talked to the fellows out there, and I asked them what was the most popular DCC system in the United States, and they said Digitrax. And the Athearn Genesis, for instance, they come with a Soundtrax decoder, which I have not tried yet, but I have to get one and see how they actually work. And because they have these booster stations and you can do this over RailNet, I believe it is called, please correct me if I'm wrong, and you can have then multiple boosters and you do multiple segments and you cut the track basically, so you have segments for each booster, which can be networked together with the same command getting then from the command station over RailNet or something to that tune. I haven't gotten that far into it. Similar to CAN bus transmission, basically, 2-wire RS485 or something to that tune. Don't nail me down now. And so that has become on larger layouts the standard. There is a fellow who developed a motor shield for the Arduino system, which has the power board separated with the heatsink and a flat ribbon cable over to the plug-in board onto the Arduino Uno or Mega. And you can plug this in. This is supposed to be getting up to 5 amps, so you can run a larger layout with one of these, but you have no option of multiple blocks with the Arduino structure. So knowing this and having had the discussion I had out at Midwest Model Railroad, that really, the primary person I talked to was Carl. And Carl explained it to me the way they did this, and he showed me all the different components for that, on how this works with Digitrax, and that showed me very clearly on how limited the Arduino Uno or Mega structure actually is in terms of layout size. Nevertheless, the Arduino Uno, as you could see, even for $14, which I paid for that little shield and the Arduino with shipping from China being a clone, works fine. It works very reliably. You have only 1 or 2 amps available, but on a small layout, say like a 4x8 foot layout, this will do it, But of course, in comparison to a DC system, where you just put some track together and you put your 2 wires on it and you're up and running. That is no longer the case. And eventually we will get a lock sound or lock pilot 6. And then I probably will not be able to use JRMI to program it, because JRMI now requires the DCC EX on these newer versions and Java 11. I'm not sure if I can install that on my computer. And I don't know if the DCC EX will actually work with the Arduino I have. It is not supposed to be working. So when that happens, when Lock Pilot 6 comes out, or a new generation of soundtracks decoder, which are not right now in that version of JMI I'm running, then I'm basically at a dead end with the system. I'm not quite sure yet on how am I going to work this around. What I intend to do is to keep my JMI system I have with the Arduino Uno. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate this. I'm going to integrate this in my layout. And I use this as a programming and test track, where I can then actually run the train over into the main, get a connection on it, an isolated connection to the layout, and I can run the locomotive then straight onto the track, where I can switch between the Digitrack system most likely and JMI at Arduino Uno, and I can switch the Uno then between programming track and regular track. So this way I have 2 toggle switches. I can either have the whole thing on the track and then just simply switch the locomotive over to Digitracks once I got it programmed, because the programming is the easiest in JMI of all of the different platforms I have looked at. And so that's kind of where I'm at. Or I could just say, I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy 25 Lock Pilot 5s, current version, and I buy 10 or 15 Lock Sound 5. Yeah, just as an example, I have an X amount of locomotives here. I may buy another 20 locomotives in the next 5 years. So I just stack up. I'm just going to stack up on load up on decoders with sound or without sound for either one of them. And then I can take my sweet time and I can do everything in my current JMI version for the next 20 years, so to speak. This is kind of what I'm thinking. Well, anyway, would be interesting if you would like to give me your feedback on this, your thoughts, if you want to leave a comment. We're getting closer to 100 subscribers. I'm really excited about this with my little channel here. Interestingly enough, all the repair type videos I've made for my car, the pattern of people, of YouTube viewers watching these videos is the same. You have about 15 to 30% of the total amount of views shown by YouTube on there, of views the video has gotten, is actually 15 to 30% out of that number. They have actually watched the entire video. These are the interested persons, interested in the topic and interested in the subject of what we're talking about here. And that is the same for the car repairs, as it is just that you get more views general on car-related stuff than you do on model railroading. I think people still don't understand that model railroading today is a very serious hobby. It's pretty good sized big business if you look at the cost of the locomotives and the cars and everything else. And, this is not your toy stuff anymore. It may have started out over 50, 75, 80 years ago as toys, but the train manufacturers realized that there was then a demand there, that people wanted to get something more sophisticated, and then it grew to the detail of what we have available today between the various different manufacturers. We still refer to entry-level models, you know, like Lima and Drift was at one point the European ones, as entry-level models. Fleischmann had the little train thing and then you're going to come back because you want something better, kind of. That's the catch-22 in this, and it works pretty well, I think. I also thought about making a video about Röver. Röver was a short-lived German manufacturer of HO scale, primarily, rolling stock, and they were also located in Stuttgart, where I grew up. And there's an interesting story, because the entire success of Rocco, the Austrian maker of HO and N-scale, well, they stopped making N-scale now since they bought Fleischmann, was based on them getting the river stuff they were getting in the mid-1970s. So there's a real interesting story on how RAL, Röver, and Rocco and Trix actually related to each other since 62 or 1960, somewhere around there. And RAL was actually a manufacturer of carburetors. They made the carburetors under the Solex brand name for Volkswagen, for the Beetles, and you know, all of those cars, beginning in 1949, I believe. And they also made then the Solex carburetors for Mercedes-Benz for their 4- and 6-cylinder engines, and they sold quite a few of them, and there were other car manufacturers too. That was their main line, and they had gotten, at the same time with their carburetors, they had gotten into model railroading, and they were building TT scale, which is not very common. So for me, being here in America, knowing the limited and short availability of Röver rolling stock, I was surprised on eBay on how much Röver material, rolling stock, is actually here in the United States, where you don't have to have it shipped over. And I want to make a video about this, the ins and outs, and what they were the market leader at the time for a short period of time, and I want to go into this. Röver is not well known, but it is the grandfather, at least the father, of Rocco, which most people don't realize. They catapulted Rocco to what it became. Anyway, I don't want to make the video too long. On the, like I said, is on the other hand here, is we have the first show coming up. Now let me take care of that. Then we're going to talk for a couple minutes about these traction tires I bought over there, which Carl recommended, and they worked out well on the small Fleischmann track, and then the RAL colors, if anyone is going to be interested in this. The Lawrence Model Railroad Club has their 22nd annual train show in Swap Meet 2024. March 2nd, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and March 3rd, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Admission is $8 donation, and children 12 and under are free with paid adult. Bring canned food donation, receive $1 admission discount per person. Barbed wire barbecue food truck Saturday and Sunday, and this whole thing is out at Crown Toyota, 3400 South Iowa Street in Lawrence, Kansas. More information at www.lawrencemodelrailroadclub.org. I'm going to put this flyer up under the community tab with the next one. And this is the one I got from Carl and his boss out there at Midwest Model Railroad. This is the Railroad Days in historic downtown Pleasant Hill, Missouri. Pleasant Hill, Missouri is about, I would say, 15 miles south of Independence. Blue Springs area, a little bit south of it. Fairly easy, can be reached. This is on April 26th, 27th, and the 28th. So that is a little bit further out, but you may want to mark it in your calendar. On the 26th, it is from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. 27th is on 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And on the 28th, it is from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Model train displays by several train clubs, individuals, and Lego trains. Historic reenactors and vendors, free to attend. Live music featuring the Good Sam Club Band, the Wildwood Boys, the George Arbuckle, and Brody Buster. I mean, if that is not a lineup, then I don't know anymore, you know. And this is www.philrailroaddays.com. Facebook, Pleasant Hill Railroad Days. I will put this up too in the community post, so you have both of these events. Then you may want to check the Midwest Model Railroad webpage, because they have workshops out there during the week, usually in the later afternoon, early evenings, on different topics and building stuff and you know, all sorts of different interesting topics to be covered. For those people who are here in the greater Kansas City area, you may want to go out there if you're new in model railroading, and they can then teach you a little bit things. They're doing things, you know, on getting your feet wet, so to speak, out there, doing real stuff and getting some guidance from older folks. Then I needed some traction tires because Fleischmann doesn't have traction tires anymore, and they're either 9mm ID, 10mm ID, or 12mm ID for most of it. Fleischmann, most of the traction tires have 2mm width of it, and about 1 millimeter or 1.5 millimeters in thickness, you know. So the closest one we could find, which is actually in stock and doesn't cost a lot of money, is this stuff here. This was the paper they came with. And that comes from a company, which is Calumet Trains, LLC, out of Powell, Ohio. And they have a website too. And that website is, where is the website? I guess you may have to Google that. I did not. I thought there was a internet site here, but it is not on this paper, and I forgot now what it was. But it is Calumet Trains. I'm going to take a picture of this too. I'm going to post this in the community section with the events we have coming on. And I got the catalog number 501HO scale, and they're really small. They're like 7 millimeters in diameter, and you really have to stretch them on the 9mm wheels from Fleischmann, or somewhere around 10 millimeters. And they're saying here this is correct, so you have to work it with the screwdriver on it and get it set in. They're probably 1.8 millimeter wide, so they're not filling the Fleischmann wheel completely out. But when you run them on the track, they kind of work them way in, and they won't slip because of that difference in diameter. So they go in pretty hard, but once you have worked them in, they stay in pretty well. And this is a good alternative. 20 traction tires were like $8 and some change. So they're not very expensive, and they're made in the United States, if I understood this. It is Calumet Trains Super Traction Tires. They have them over at Midwest Model Railroads on their website. So if you do a search Calumet Trains, they will come up. And now the last thing we got is the RAL Colors. And I just give them to you here. I'm not going to put my handwriting up there. The RAL Colors for the locomotive for the E44 R 6007. That is the bottle green. That is that body. Then the concrete gray for the roof is 7023. And the black markings around and the trucks and the undercarriage basically is what they call Deep Black 9005. They all had this. And then the lettering is 9002, which is gray-white. And then we have the catenaries. They would be 3002, the original color. And that is chimney red. And that's basically it. And the chimney red, the 3002, is also used on the spokes on these wheels as you saw them in the video. Well, I think I talked about everything, and I hope you have a great night, and I hopefully may see you at one of these two events, because I'm planning on going there. And with that, you have a great evening. Thank you for subscribing, thank you for liking the video, and please feel free to comment.